again, Guyana, and welcome to another edition of Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us. On today's program, too, we're focusing, as usual, we're focusing on two sectors. First, we're going to begin with the environment, what's happening in our environment, and it's very, very important because, there's an ongoing conversation this morning, and I could recall saying to the Minister of State this morning, of course, as you know, the Department of Environment falls under the Minister of State. And I called it an ongoing conversation. He said, Malika, but it's no longer just an ongoing conversation. It will soon be law. And if you haven't yet got where I'm coming from, I'm talking about the single-use products ban being closer. And in this case, I'm going to piggyback off of Chronicle's headline, a recent headline, single-use plastic products ban closer. So that soon is going to become law. Those of you who've been following not only Facing the Nation but also Conversations in State, as you know, that focuses on all of those departments and ministries and so on that really fall within the Ministry of the Presidency. You know, we had a part of this conversation already on Conversations in State, but what I've decided to do today is to mesh both. We're dealing with the environment and what's to come in terms of the ban on single-use plastic, and we're going to combine that with what's happening at the Mayor and City Council. And on that note, it is my pleasure to, for the first time to this program, to welcome Ms. Aretha Forde. Of course, she is from the Department of the Environment, and to welcome back to the program the Director of Solid Waste Management, and of course that is Mr. Walter Narine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Facing the Nation.
Thank you.
Great to have you. And also, viewers, I should also tell you I've learned something today, and thanks to Walter, that today is World Oceans Day.
Yes.
All right. Well, they'll be talking about all of that. But just to give you a heads up, coming up in the second half of the program, we'll be focusing on the education sector. We're going to be having the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana come on and talk with us. As you know, he is quickly approaching, I think, 2 years since he has took over as Vice Chancellor, and he's going to be telling you all of the things that he's managed to achieve with his team at the University of Guyana, and how the campus and so on, how it has improved, especially in terms of the physical of the University of Guyana. So that's coming up in the second half. But right now, let's get into the conversation about the environment. I'm going to start off with Aretha, because apart from today being World Oceans Day, Monday, I think, we observed World Environment Day.
It was on Tuesday.
Tuesday, yes, my bad. The brain is getting old, so you understand. But let's talk about how significant the observation for World Environment Day in 2018 would have been.
All right, so first off, World Environment Day is the single biggest environmental observance on the United Nations calendar. It's a day for people to take action on whatever environmental issue is being highlighted during that time. And I think it's no coincidence that the themes for different observances have been very similar. So for Earth Day, and we spoke about that on Conversations in State, that the theme was end plastic pollution. And for World Environment Day, we're looking at beating plastic pollution. And then for Oceans Day, which is today, of course, they look at issues as it relates to the marine environment, the aquatic environment, and of course plastic is the number one issue as it relates to that.
All right, I know there have been several activities and so on. How are Guyanese receiving this move to banning plastic? Well, let me get it correct, single-use plastic products.
Yeah, the idea has been around for some time, but not overly stated. I remember when we had the ban on styrofoam, it was brought up, okay, so you ban styrofoam, when are you going to ban plastic? But styrofoam is a type of plastic. Kind of plastic that we're looking at is the single-use plastics. So it's low-density polyethylene, that's the chemical name, and Walter can back me up on that because he's a chemist. And it's really those products that are designed for one-time use. So if it's your straws, what we call the scandal bags, where everybody can see what you bought from the shop, from plastic bottles to paper plates and cups and other items. those are the products that we are looking to ban. I remember in the first national conversation on single-use plastics, we had a representative of the private sector commission talking about recycling and, we need to rethink some of these things. But the problem with single-use plastics is that they're so thin, it's very hard for them to be recycled.
Oh, okay. On this note, I want to bring Walter in on the conversation here, because the last time you were on Facing the Nation, we talked about the importance of, for want of a better term, jumping on the recycling bandwagon. And now Aretha is saying that there may be some difficulty in recycling plastic. Let's talk.
And that is true. Basically what happens is that recycling talk in Guyana, in Georgia, has been around for several years now.
Okay.
Right? We encourage entrepreneurs to look at the fractions of waste, and they can see market for their value. But nobody substantially has come forward to say, listen, we're going to use the PET bottles, for instance, and we're going to recycle it, shred it, and ship it overseas. Right? As Aretha said, the plastic bags and the straws and so, they're very, very difficult to recycle. Right? Because you lose more. Right? During production, you lose more. So your end product would not be, if you start at 100% of it, you might probably get 10 or 15%. It doesn't make sense. It's not feasible.
Yeah.
So that is it. I remember the previous administration, they were talking, they had a national recycling committee that I was part of. And we encourage all entrepreneurs to come in, to look at the data and to run with it. Nobody substantial has come forward, and even to now, right? It's sad that now that we're moving towards a potential ban on the single-use items, you hear, we should do recycling, we should do this, we should do that. Nobody's still coming forward to say, look, listen, I'm going to do it, right? We give the data is free, right? You have the composition of waste in Georgetown, you see what percentage of what fraction is there generally, and it's not. Right?
Okay.
So I think the only thing has very good potential, and it's something that we are working on. It's still working for us. Is a composting, which makes up about 50% of the composition of waste in Georgetown.
All right. I know Aretha and of course her team and so on, and the Department of Environment would have been doing a lot of work, not only in Georgetown but across our country. I tell people sometimes when we have these conversations, our mindset, we just think Region 4 in Georgetown and so on. But I know you are Georgetown Solid Waste Management Director. How is this going to generally change the face of the way the Georgetown City Council functions? When I say this, I mean the move toward banning single-use plastic.
It will be significant, honestly, because if you go in every drain, let's put it that way, in Georgetown, it's littered with plastics, right? And Georgetown, as you know, could only withstand 4 inches of rainfall. Right? Coupled with the indiscriminate dumping of these items in our waterways. That's why every time it rains for a prolonged period, you have flooding, mass flooding. And when you go to look at the coca mouth, the coca head, to go in, before you really open the coca door, it's lined with meters per meters of plastics, right? Because what happened is that folks do dump in the river, in the drains or stuff like that, but the plastic bags are very light and they move by wind. So they inadvertently end up into the ocean. So if that is taken away from the waste stream, right? Plastics, as you know, PET bottles, for instance, have several years before it fully disintegrates. Plastic bags is over 100 years, right? That is taken to landfill, and all is buried in landfill. It still remains there, right? So that is the challenge that we have. If you remove that from the waste stream, then we have a clean environment, and so we have to look towards the environment outward.
Indeed, and especially with our fully green initiative. So you're expecting the same sort of relief our city, not only the city, the country got from banning styrofoam?
Definitely, most definitely.
Okay.
Right, and we welcome it and we support it fully.
Okay, perfect. Aretha, let's talk now. What else is happening in terms of not only moving toward making it law, but getting Guyanese into the state, because we did a lot of work to get Guyanese into the state of mind of not using the styrofoam, the ban on styrofoam and so on. What else is in the pipeline from the Department of the Environment to get Guyanese on? Again, yes, we're banning single-use plastics.
All right, so the activity that we had on Tuesday, the National Conversation, that's the first in a series of similar events that we're going to have across the country in the more urban areas.
Okay.
But what I find very sad is if you move away from the urban areas, you would still find plastic pollution in the Pomeroon River, in the Maikoni Creek, and these are places that I can testify that there is plastic pollution because I've traveled during outreaches, and it's really sad to see that areas that are supposed to be pristine are now littered with plastic. It is very sad, and we're really spoiling our country. And so what we are attempting to do before the ban fully comes on stream is to have a number of actions taken before this becomes law. And of course, at the top of that would be consultations with the public. Because in defining, it's very hard to define what single-use plastic is.
It is. It's because people have asked, you know.
Yeah, and they have asked. Even in our presentation to Cabinet, I mean, we were tasked with coming up with a very clear definition for what single-use plastics are and what items we will have under that ban.
Okay. In the presentation to Cabinet, though, because again, it always comes back to our lawmakers, our legislators, and so on. You get the sense that they're on board and they understand where the Department of Environment wants to take us.
Yes, they're very much on board, and I was so nervous because the president was there, and I was like, why is he here?
you weren't expecting
yes,
that.
and he was fully on board, and you know, we're even looking at cutting the time. We proposed 2021, but it's believed that
ban?
Yes, for a complete ban. Because as Minister Trotman pointed out, when we had the styrofoam ban, although the idea was around for a while, you know, we moved very quickly with the implementation, and it was successful in that you can hardly find any styrofoam around right now. So it's believed that we can do the same thing with plastic, but this single-use plastic has a much wider application than the styrofoam, which was confined to food containers. And so, you know, you really need the public to come on board and to share their concerns. Persons have already started messaging on the department's Facebook page, you know, what are some of the initiatives that we can do. Minister Henry, she would have pledged her ministry support in getting the topic discussed in schools, in using community-based participation in whatever initiative we have. So Cabinet is fully on board, and of course they have offered their support from various ministries.
I want to talk about World Oceans Day a bit, and of course I'll also bring Walter back into the conversation here. What else? Because it was a big fuss and viewers, when I say fuss, I don't mean that in a negative sense, but it was a big production. We were all aware that it was World Environment Day, even to Art Day and Art Hour. But today, World Oceans Day, let me be honest, and being honest, had it not been for Walter's Facebook page, I would not have known. Do you think that World Oceans Day is as important as World Environment Day, and what else can we do to make people a little more aware of the importance of also protecting oceans and you know, our waterways basically?
I'm so glad you asked that question. Our oceans are very important. It's actually one singular water body, and we just somehow divided it into different oceans. But the majority of the world's population, those persons living on the coast, depend on the oceans for their livelihood, for their sources of food, and we depend on the oceans because actually scientists tell us that the oceans absorb more carbon dioxide than the forests do. So I like to think of them as the left lung and right lungs of the earth. And so we need the services of the oceans. We need healthy oceans, and our oceans cannot be healthy if they're polluted with plastic.
Okay, indeed. Walter, I want you to jump in here, the importance of oceans.
Well, apart from what Aretha said, the ocean gives us most of the oxygen that we do breathe, right? And it provides food for many people, many people, all of us actually,
Yeah.
right? And at the presentation, you had Miss Aretha was explaining that the leatherback turtles that work there mistaking these plastic items for jellyfish, right? And they actually eat them, consume them, and they will die a slow death, right? So it's severe. Yes, the focus is not so much or popular in Guyana. I think we'll get there, right? We all have to think about the environment. We all have to think about the environment and the damage that we cause. And you see, the problem what we have, for me, I think, is many of us are trying to live in the moment, right? Try to garner amount of riches, have the expensive stuff. Now, we're not thinking about the future generation to come. What environment we leave for them. And the more we start thinking about that, then we'll change our behavior. I think this is a behavior problem, and while we await on the legislation and the laws coming forward, the simple things that we as Guyanese could do, that when that comes, we start the easy transition, right? Stop taking plastic bags at the supermarket, walk with your own shopping bags, right? Stop buying the plastic bottle. I'm not trying to say that, okay, I'm advocating people to ban or put people out of business.
Well,
but if you're looking for the environment, right, you'll walk with your own container with water to work or to school, right? My kids, they all take water bottles, right? And I even share this with the presentation is that if I do have to buy food, I have my own container that I'll take to the restaurant.
You actually do
yes,
that?
Yes, I do that.
I need to start doing that.
Yeah, but I think really you're onto something there. And I'm going to suggest, I'm sorry viewers, but everything these days is about social media and people like to see. So I'm requesting that one day when you do that, you let us see a photograph of it, because it is, well then you could, there's also going live. And it's very interesting that you actually do that.
It is simple things that we can do, right? And our department, and there's always department, I'll put out something on Facebook, yes, asking for the rice bags or
yes, I noticed.
What we're going to do is that recycle those bags into shopping bags. We're going to make shopping bags after that.
Out of the rice bags.
And every month, right, until the department put this ban,
yes,
we're going to go to the supermarkets, we're going to go to the municipal markets, and we're going to give out these free, right? Let consumers start using reusable shopping bags.
I know you basically started championing this a few months ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, and you even had a poll.
Yeah.
Did you get the response from, and of course I know Aretha would also eventually jump in on this, did you get the response, especially from the supermarkets, that, you would have liked the positive, because you also spoke about the fact that, you don't want people to think that you're putting them out of business.
That's true. Yes, they responded. The poll is there. I think it was 70 to 30, right? For one, people look at it that you're gonna charge a tariff on the bags, right? And why they should do that. But when you explain to them that you're encouraging people to come with their own, so they don't have to pay, right? And if you continuously have to pay for these plastic bags, then sooner or later you're gonna say I can't afford that anymore, and you're gonna walk with your own shopping bag, right? And the supermarkets, as you mentioned, I have went to supermarkets without their owner's knowledge, and I would see Matai, I would see Pharmacy and Survival, right? They would have started, right? They have the reusable shopping bags in the supermarkets, and it's just a simple cost. And for Matai, it was $150. At Massey, I think it was $100 and something. And Survival, they were actually giving out free at one time, right? We need to get on board. We really, really need to get on board, and every guy needs to champion this cause, right? Because when you look at the horrendous pictures of what the oceans turn into with plastic pollution, you have I mentioned this, maybe 3 times the size of France, floating, right? Floating in the river, in the oceans, right? And if you go to the KTC wall and you see any one of the ports out there, to go for just a swim, it's polluted. It's polluted with plastics, right? And plastics move from one location to another. And we just need to change our behavior.
All right, great. Aretha,
when
we spoke on Conversations in State, our main focus was the Green State Development Strategy. How all of this, what you've said so far regarding banning the single-use plastics, and of course what Walt is talking about the ocean, how does all of this tie into green state development for Guyana, and how does the strategy accommodate all of that?
Yes, of course, we can't talk about an initiative like this without mentioning the GSDS.
Exactly.
And we know in a green state, we want to have all three pillars of sustainability occurring at one time. And so a move like this will ensure that we diversify economic activities. So we move away from importing the plastic bags, and we allow local entrepreneurs to manufacture the cloth bags, paper bags, and whatever other natural materials that they can find. So that takes care of the economic side and the social side as well, because more persons get jobs, and all the benefits that stem from gainful employment. And then of course we have the environmental side, because we are no longer using oil to produce plastic, because yes, plastic is petroleum based, and it, in fact, 8% of all the oil that's extracted goes towards making plastic products.
Okay.
Right? So in a green state, one of the guiding principles is decarbonization. And I don't want to go on and on about how our carbon footprint will be lessened by making such a move as this.
Okay. All right. Both of you mentioned schools, working in the schools. What can we see? Programs targeting them, and again, viewers, not targeting in a negative sense, but targeting the schools, especially the little ones, because most times when we want change in society, so I have a colleague who referred to us as and those a little younger as generation lost. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you want change and you want to ensure that change really happens, you have to start in the very tender, the preschools, nursery schools. Preschool may be too young, but in the nursery schools, what is there to target that? And I'd like because I know, Walter, you were also big on compost, and we talked about that in schools. But beginning with you, Aretha, what's there for them?
All right, so we definitely, and I'm glad you brought this up, because our director, Ms. Shreya, she was at the Mayor and City Council's activity, and she came back and she was describing, the energy of these children, and they're like the neglected stakeholders, and she was so excited, and she said, guys, we need to engage the school children. We need to not only have them spread the message, but we need to hear their views on the environment. We need to hear what they think about the environment as well. And so in having those national conversations, when we start to spread out into the different regions, we expect that we will take some time to go into the schools and speak with children. And of course, like I said earlier, Minister Henry has pledged her ministry support, and of course we will take her up on that to ensure that environmental education at some point is streamlined into the curriculum.
Before we talk about Walter's role, do you see any difficulty in all of this being rolled out in the hinterland communities, where maybe they may actually need it more than us because of the physical aspects of our hinterland? Do you see any difficulties with having all of these things rolled out in those communities?
I do not. I do not. I think the local government system is strong enough to support whatever national law is being implemented. So there shouldn't be any problems. I think those persons living in the hinterland communities are more in tune with nature than us on the coast. We're more materialistic in nature, sadly.
If you want to say modern technology and cars and so on, I think some of us need to walk a little more. I can just hear the transmission operator saying, "You can't believe I'm saying walk a little more," and I was just complaining about maybe a 15-minute walk that I took today. Well, so let's have your opinion on this, especially where the little ones are concerned.
Okay, so what we do, we try to continuously engage schools, and two things that we'll start immediately is next week Saturday, in front of the Starbuck Market Square, we're going to have a mini fair, right? We're going to have all the kids come out, right, to exhibit what they're doing toward preserving the environment. And then we're going to spread the message about single-use plastic, and we'll extend the invitation for the Ministry of
the
Department of Education and Environment, because it has to be a collaborative effort. And also what we want to reinstitute is environmental club. Right? Only this morning we were talking about all the schools in Georgetown. Let's bring them on board, have an environmental club in every school, and they can help spread the message across.
Nice.
Right? So it's something that we have started. It was very well received. I heard. I wasn't there. I was at the Aretha's function, the Plastic Forum. But it's something we have to keep engaging the youth, because they're going to be the messenger. They're going to be the voice of change, right? Because when they go back home, they have this wealth of knowledge, and they will force the parents to do it, right? We sometimes be complacent as adults, and we don't see the need. And the kids need to live in the future, and they will do it. But one thing I want to say that was mentioned at the forum that we spoke about is that you heard the private sector who were saying that, listen, the government is taking $10 for every plastic bottle that they import, right? And inadvertently, the consumer pays that $10. And it works out about a couple $2 billion that we would receive. But what they fail to realize, right, is that government's position is that, listen, yes, we have collected that money, but we are willing to give up that money to preserve the environment.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And that's a spin that they have to look at. Remember, we're giving up that billions of dollars that you collect over 3 or 4 years now for the greater good of preserving the environment. And that's what the private sector needs to understand.
Right. So you basically would, if you don't give it up, you'd spend more in the long run.
Definitely.
Yes.
And
definitely.
I would have written, and I think all the ministries will have a letter before the day is out, right? And all stakeholders actually ask them, whatever functions you have, please don't serve bottled water.
Oh, I really hope they take you up on that.
Right?
And that's interesting.
The letters are going to go out very shortly, right? To everybody. It's ridiculous.
But if I can be the Debbie Downer on the other side, you're asking them, which mind you I agree, but I'm just gonna go where other persons may want to go. You're asking them to not serve water
in plastic bottles.
In plastic
serve it in
bottles.
mugs.
In mugs.
You have the mugs with the water, and you have a glass.
Some people who I can't remember the word for them, but it's like a fear of it's a health thing.
Okay, well, if you know you're gonna go, if you know you're going to a function, walk with your own container with water.
Listen, great minds do think alike, because just this morning I got a message. Aretha, you need to check this entity's page. You know, we are having a conversation the entire week about plastics, and there is this government entity serving water in plastic bottles, and we need to write them.
I've seen several photos.
We need to write the ministries. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, because.
And I said, you know what? We'll get to drafting that letter. So, you know, this is definitely an area where we will collaborate.
I'm happy about this because, again, with policies and issues and topics like these, sometimes it's difficult to get the young people on board because they think about the boredom of it. But in listening to both of you and talking with both of you and sharing ideas and so on, to implement this change is fun. There are fun things that you can do and you can learn. And Walter, I must say that, you know, the most times, unfortunately, the MNCC is in the news for negative things, and it's always, they're not picking up garbage on time and so on. What I'm happy is that MNCC is no longer necessarily there to just after we make a mess, they come and clean, but you're involved now and you're sharing ideas on you know, on how we can basically help you in terms of reducing the amount of waste and so on that we put out there. So, you know, I'm happy about that. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I know I've had a conversation before with Aretha, also with Walter, and I know they both can sit here and talk for until 1:30, but unfortunately we can't do that. But before we wrap up, if there's anything that I've missed, again, because this is very serious, it's very important for us, even though we're having a fun conversation, it is, you know, a very important and, you know, heavy topic. If there's anything that I've missed, I'd like to give both of you a chance, you know, for some wrap-up sentiments, beginning with you, Aretha.
All right, so thank you. In commemoration of World Oceans Day, Guyana is having a cleanup on the seawalls from 7 o'clock tomorrow. I imagine you could just come half an hour, 1 hour, and just dedicate some time towards taking positive action in helping us to beat plastic pollution.